What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode number 55 of Bettin and Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Kyle Roscoe, and a great Happy New Year to you all. I hope you guys all had a great New Year filled with partying or not partying. You know, if you're more of the lay low type, I completely get it. That New Year's Eve for me was absolutely ridiculous. For those of you that follow me on Twitter, went to Disney World, of course, got the hat on, but of course, watched the team that I'll get into in a few seconds, but it was fantastic. We sat in Epcot, drank around the world. For those of you that know, you know, it was a ton of fun. And like I said, hopefully you guys had a happy and blessed New Year with your family and you started off the new year right. But today we have a very, very good show for you guys. We're covering a great Saturday late pick five for you at Gulfstream Park, including the Limestone Ginger Brew and Dania Beach Stakes. Lots of turf racing, a dirt stake, and a synthetic race mixed in there. 3 different surfaces, all fantastic races, and some really tough horses and races to pinpoint down. So follow along, please, if you have this card handicapped, or even if you don't handicap along with us, and post your picks in the live chat. We would love to have a discussion and bounce ideas back off of you guys as well. Scrolling down below the video player, you see the email bettinandboozin@gmail.com. Please send me any emails you have, questions, comments, concerns, or anything of the above. Please send that on over. Would love to converse with you. Down below the video player, please go down below and hit subscribe. It's the easiest way to help out the channel, and it really, really does help us out, along with smashing that like button. As our very astute viewer, Steven Vanderbrook, says, smash that like button, please, guys. I want to try and break a like goal in this video if we could. I want to try and break 40, 50 likes on this video. If you guys could do that for us, that would be greatly appreciated, because not only does it show you us that you guys are liking the content, but it also pushes this video out into the algorithm to hopefully get more viewers to the HHH Racing Podcast Network. And we need that because a very, very special announcement was made today on Twitter by the boss, Howard Kravitz. A new show will be debuting next Monday. This show is called Horsing Around, and it will recap all stakes action from the weekend and a topical discussion on all of horse racing with special guests or fans of the podcast. Please email Howard hkravitzhorse@gmail.com, HKRAVETS horse@gmail.com, if you guys want to get on the email list and email him that you want to be a part of the show, because we are looking to spread the wealth, as they say, and include some viewers of the podcast on those shows to kind of talk about what they had that previous weekend, betting wise, or what they saw in the races and stuff like that. It's going to be a ton of fun and a lot more lax show come Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, just like all the shows on the HHH Racing Podcast. However, next week's show, I believe, is at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Again, follow Howard on Twitter at @HKravitz for all information regarding the podcast. But yeah, new show, Horsing Around, looks to be a very fun one. Hopefully you guys can tune in for that. But of course, guys, we're going to get all the peripherals out of the way. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. All podcasts on the HHH Racing Podcast channel will also be posted to the HHH Racing Podcast Network on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. If you're more of an audio listener, please go rate, review, and subscribe over there. The Power Picks, guys, are still going very, 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 very strong. Almost to 500 picks, and we are profitable for over 2.5 years, guys. And that's, again, through every single pick based on ROI. We are still almost 25 cents above the positive ROI mark, while the average horse player is $1.60. If you have not subscribed yet, you are definitely missing out. Patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. That link is also below in the description. Of course, we have a great website, hhhracingpodcast.com. If you want to know any more about us, or if you want to see previous editions of the Power Picks before you sign up. But guys, like I said, without further ado, we're going to get right into it here. Charlie is on his way. He's coming pretty quick, and Patrick was stuck at work. They're both trying to get here pretty quick. But of course, without further ado, a man who's been MIA for the past 2 weeks, 2 weeks, not sure, but he's back from his vacation. He's ready to ring in the new year with me, all being a little bit under the weather, but it is West Coast bias himself, Noah Maher. Noah, what's going on, my man?
I'm doing all right. Good to be back after a little hiatus, little sickness, but we're going to fight through it.
Well, if you don't hear, the beetle flamma is sick in the other room, so I apologize for any coughing that runs through. It seems there's a lot of stuff going around now, but hopefully you guys, like I said, are happy and healthy yourselves. But without further ado, guys, we're going to get right into it after a few comments here. Again, Steer Vanderbrook, thank you so much for joining the show very early. Smash that like button, please, guys. Again, want to try and hit a like goal in this episode. So, like the very astute Steven Vanderbrook says, smash that like button. Katie is here nice and early. Good evening to you, Katie. Thanks so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. Ralph Conti, happy new year to you as well, my friend. Mark Bocats, I don't think I've seen that name before. Mark, thanks so much for joining the show, man. Greatly appreciate it. Let's absolutely pick some winners, and we got some good ones coming for you today, hopefully. Terry Frank is here. Happy New Year. Charlestown is back for 2024. Terry, absolutely. Thanks so much for doing the show, my friend, and Happy New Year to you as well. And Howard, of course, the boss is here. Happy New Year. Can't wait to hear about the horses, Disney, and trip to Mexico. That's obviously where Noah was in Mexico, and I was, of course, in Disney World. So, like I said, greatly appreciate Howard joining the show. And he met Horsey Dave at Gulfstream. Nice to see our fans in person. Absolutely. Howard and Charlie were both at Gulfstream Park over last week. And there's a lot of vacations to end off the year for the HHH Racing Podcast family. Sylvain is here. Happy New Year to you as well. Paul Conlon is here. I get what you're saying, Paul. I won't put up that comment, but I get exactly what you're saying. Happy New Year to you, my friend, as well. Racing Downwind is here. David Barista is here. Long time no see, my friend. Thanks so much, Dan, for joining the show, guys. We're going to get right into it here. The late pick 5 at Gulfstream Park starts in race number 7. And like I said, guys, this is a pretty good, it's a good card, but it's got a lot of interesting races to come down to it and a lot of full fields. This is a full field of 12, allowance optional 25, going a mile and a 16th on the turf. And the one thing you guys got to know, especially in the mile races and under, they do sometimes run 7.5 furlong route races at Gulfstream Park. But it's a very short run up to the first turn. A mile and a 16th, you have a little bit more room to get over, but it's still not much. And that's one thing you have to keep in mind, especially with these full fields when you're handicapping these turf races at Gulfstream Park. 12 horses in this race. Again, we don't have morning lines as we are doing this on Wednesday for Saturday card, but we can kind of, guess favoritism based on that. Quality G for Irad and Pletcher will most likely be your morning line favorite, I would assume, and probably your post time favorite. American Diamond, Gaffleon, Safi always gets bet down there. Ruse could be bet. Joe Bravo's speed horse from the inside. Again, being towards that inside is where you technically want to be post position wise early in the race at these Gulfstream turf races, but we'll obviously see when the morning lines come out from a guest on the show that was here last week, Brian Natto. And again, shout out to him, a nice friend of the podcast. But no, I'm going to switch over the picks right now, man, and we're going to get going here as I find them. There we go. Race number 7. You'll see three of us are going with the number 10 Quality G, but West Coast bias himself, my friend, going against the chalk most likely, while going with a horse that I don't even have anywhere, but Charlie does have the horse in third, the number 8 American Diamond, as I mentioned before.
Yeah, I went with American Diamond in this spot. I'm assuming that the 10 is going to be the favorite. 10's got a lot of weight with 3 co-hosts on him now. But with American Diamond, you look at his races kind of from the fall and the last couple months here. Wins Kentucky Downs going a mile, which is not an easy thing to do. And then he was 4-1 in that N1X at Keeneland. And I'm kind of thinking that, he didn't like the ground. That was, mid-October where we were getting a lot of rain down in Lexington. And then comes back up at Gulfstream, runs a pretty nice race. Looked like he, had a little bit of an excuse. I think he had to go, pretty wide in that race. He looked like he was full of run and just kind of didn't get there. The race was supposed to be on the turf and then ended up being on the synthetic. I think with the quick turnaround, I think Safi's looking to get this horse, back on the turf, firm turf, what he likes, and I think he should be ready to fire.
That was my one thing with American Diamond was the kind of quick turnaround. Obviously, coming back in 3 weeks, it's nothing unheard of for Safi, of course, especially down in Gulfstream, but never really showed his stuff. Then runs back to that big number he ran early in the year, but in an off the turf to Peter race. It's just kind of the thing where in a full field like this, I kind of want to have to see it again for American Diamond. At least that's me personally, why I don't have the horse in there. But this horse looks to have a really nice trip. That being the number 8 American Diamond. If he can sit a little bit closer to the pace as he's shown in the past to run his best races from up close, i.e. this claiming race at Gulfstream, and then that Kentucky Downs race was right on the lead, winning that starter 50,000. So if he can get a little bit closer, American Diamond is definitely interesting. I'll talk about the number 10 Quality G. I mean, look, it's the chalk. It's the most likely, I would argue, probably the most likely winner in this race. But again, the problem is that I ran into, this is not really a default pick because I do like the horse on top, but the post position is definitely not without concern for me. No, I'm sure you can talk on this as well. You have the horse in second, so you obviously like him as well. Just didn't really get the job done last time at a mile. We'll go a little bit longer this time. I thought it ran really well, albeit with a pretty decent trip. Just never really could change leads in the stretch. But those races at Belmont at Aqueduct, excuse me, for the New York people come from my throat. But the starter 50 was a very, very good race coming from a little bit farther back. I think this horse, if IRAD can get Quality G in a little bit, off that quick run to the first turn, I just think this horse could trip out in this race.
Yeah, he's probably the most talented horse in the field. The concern for me is he, doesn't always get there when he's supposed to. He was even money last time, and he got a absolutely perfect trip and just, couldn't quite get there. You look at the numbers at the top right, 0 for 5 at the distance, but 4 seconds, and then 5 seconds out of 8 starts on the turf. So maybe it's just a horse with a lot of quality that just, doesn't necessarily like to win.
Yeah, and that's fairly, that point is easily valid as you can just go back through the form here. You can see second half, third half, second nose. This is going back to the maiden win here at Gulfstream last year, but ran at Monmouth in the Tail of the Cat in the Jersey Derby, which 2 very nice races, was 60 cents to the dollar in one of those races, losing by a half at a mile, and then comes back, $1.40 to your dollar, and then only loses by a half again. But just, a horse that might not be able to get the job done, which is a completely fair criticism. I like that he headed first in the stretch last time, and there's just not a whole lot of, there's some good horses in here, just not really the best quality as to what he's faced before. So I think the 10 just might trip out if IRAD can get him in. I went with the number 2 Ruse in second, and this is a complete pace play for me. I understand that that 92 buyer was an estate bred at Aqueduct. I completely understand that. But you go back a little bit farther. Those 84s, 85s, as we just mentioned, that's everything that everyone else has ran, and maybe even a little bit more. You can see these open company N1Xs at Saratoga, granted, getting 8th and 4th, but not losing by that much. Some pretty good horses, and Dracone, Fair Dinkum, Buoys, who we touched on last week at Gulfstream Park. I'm very busy, just a lot of good quality company in those N1Xs. It's kind of what I'm tuning into a race that, being inside is going to help. Plus, maybe not having too much pressure on the lead. There is a little bit of speed in this race, but not to what this horse has had to run into previously. If this horse can get to the lead, I think this is one that could stick in the money for sure. Ruse will be my second choice in race number 7. And then, no, I'll let you touch on. We both have number 5 and 3rd, Blame the Good Times. Brian Lynch, as Brian Nadeau touched on last week when Howard on the Flagship show, now called Picks and Ponies, by the way. It was just, like you said, they're just hammering the Brian Lynch horses. They've been running very well. Obviously, he's won 7 for 20. He's 7 for 24 to start the meet, winning at a mere 30%, which, last time I checked was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're kind of thinking similarly here. I'm kind of keying in on that last race. I think he had a little more trouble than it, kind of seems. It just seemed like, we were watching that race and Quality G is coming out of the same race as well, where he ended up in second.
And just real quick, Quality G is the 2 here, guys. We'll show the type of backstretch run, and Blame the Good Times is the 4th. Also, the 5 is Fredo, who is the number. I cannot remember what number Fredo is in this race, but either way, I'm going to move to the backstretch. No, I'll let you talk through it.
Yeah, you can see Fredo's a speed horse, definitely. But I think he's either the 11 or 12 in this race. So I was a little bit against Fredo. Just since he's got that outside post, he's got to work really hard. Yeah, Blame the Good Times is the 4, and he it looks like he has some horse, and he's kind of loses momentum there. Kind of has to shuffle back. Meanwhile, Fredo and Quality G are kind of getting the first run on him.
Yep.
And then the horse doesn't give up. He comes with another run. A lot of times you see a horse kind of gets a little bothered and they get a little uninterested, but it seemed like he kept coming. And again, like you said, and Brian said last week, Brian Lynch, for that fact, he's been having a hell of a meet so far.
Yeah, and as you see, Quality G, as we touched on, maybe he headed the stretch. I don't know if he got he switched leads, so maybe he got a little weary, but it almost just seems like he kind of just doesn't go on with it once he hits the front. And you'll see Blame the Good Times being the 4 in there, still had a nice late run after the trouble endured. So maybe running back to that 80. I just a little light on the figures. I would like to see a little bit more from Blame the Good Times, but definitely could be one to fill out your exactas and trifectas. Real quick, I'll touch on Noah. I mean, Patrick and Charlie are all over the board underneath. Patrick has the 7 game change off that last race at Belmont, and then coming off the trainer switch to James Toner. Toner is 3 for 16 off the trainer switch in the last 5 years. So, right around that, kind of teens percentage wise. So not that bad, but is a little bit light on the figures. And then we'll have to improve off a layoff, but it is working really well down at Palm Meadows. Charlie has the 11 and 8. So the 8 American Diamond. McKillop for Ian Wilkes. Louis Saez hops aboard, which you don't see too often for Wilkes. Coming out of some really nice M1Xs. Just looks to be really far back in a race like this. Could be up to Leperoux, which we won't get into that. But Louis Saez could be more aggressive and could be one on the improve. Definitely one to look for underneath. Fredo is the horse we talked about underneath as well, who will be on the front end, but will have to navigate from that outside post, which might be a little tough. I'm going 10-5. No, Patrick's going 10-7-9. Charlie's going 10-11-8. Noah's going 8-10-5. Guys, switching up to race number 8 here as I switch over the Equibase right now. Race number 8 is the only other non-stakes race that we are talking about today. Is a starter optional 16,000, going a mile and 16th on the Dapita course, and it draws a nice field of 9, honestly, for this one. Morning line favorite, man. I mean, your guess is as good as mine, really, in this one. I mean, Reza's Rolex will be there. Tap It 3 Times could be there as well, although I think might be a little bit more of a price. Pirate Radio could be there as well. Papa Do. There's just a lot of different ways we can go in this race. And as I switch over to the picks, you'll see that albeit there's a lot of ways we can go, we have all chosen the number 1. Tap It 3 Times for Paco and Joseph Orseno, who has been, I mean, you want to talk about a guy who's lights out right now, is Paco Lopez, 26% out of 111 starts, Noah. I mean, and this horse ran really well last time, albeit, in a little bit of an easy trip per se, but did have a little bit of trouble coming down the lane, I think. But I mean, the big thing is this race, you can see there's a 6-horse field, and if 5 of these horses are coming out of this race, so this is a replay definitely worth showing.
Yeah, in terms of a lot of horses in this race coming out of this race that we're about to watch, I kind of thought the 1 and the 3 today, or the 3 and the 5 in that race, were probably the 2 contenders in here. I ended up going with the 1 because I thought that the 3 was probably going to end up being the favorite. With Irad, you always, the people like to talk about how you always pay the tax when you bet Irad down at Gulfstream. So I ended up going with Tap It 3 Times, who's the 1 in here. Actually was the favorite over Reza's Rolex, who's the 3 in the spot. I do like the fact that you get to the top of the stretch here, and
you even get the pocket back in the middle of that.
Yeah, the Paco's looking back like he's got a ton of horse, and then as we hit the top of the stretch, tap it 3 times, pretty much looks like he's going to go by, and then Irad pulls his typical, I won't call it BS, but leans on the other horse and ends up fighting back. For the one horse that day, Sammy Camacho was on, or I believe that's Sammy Camacho.
Sammy Camacho, Samuel Camacho. Is it Sammy Camacho or Sammy Camacho Jr.? I think it might have been. That is something. It's Sammy Camacho Jr.
Yeah, but anyway, I think the switch to Paco is huge because Paco's an aggressive guy himself, and he's not going to back down from a fight. So I think if something like that happens again, Paco's not going to turn away, and he's going to fight to the wire.
I don't disagree with you. We saw it last week where, on the bad side for me, it ended up, getting left up one day, getting taken down the next. I'm not going to get into it, guys.
It was Cruising Man, wasn't it?
Yep, it was Cruising Man. Yep. Yeah. And of course, Cronsway's Richie didn't do a whole lot of running that day. But Cruising Man was something I needed, to stay alive in a lot of the bets and the bets that I gave out to you guys as well on Twitter at AP Roscoe K. I put out all of my picks, and now Noah is going to start putting out his picks as well. So that's definitely West Coast bias. It's going to put up his picks, and hopefully you can get a piece of those scores that have been coming on recently, but actually not really recently, but you know what I mean? Yeah, whatever. I mean, we can talk about it all the time with the stewards, but I just think tap it 3 times was really unlucky to not win that race. And the fact that he's going to get Paco, which you can only consider a rider upgrade, being on the inside, going to have a pretty near identical trip, if not on the lead, just off the lead, and can switch out to the top of the stretch and run a really nice race. Completely agree with you, Noah. Tap it 3 times is my top pick in this race. We talked about Rez's Rolex. You have the number 6, 10th Mountain, and 3rd. I have Pirate Radio off of a pretty nice trip last time as well with Jose. Gets Jose back aboard for Jose D'Angelo. Just another one that might be able to trip out with a little bit more of an aggressive ride. The switch back to the route, I think, was the key last time, coming from that 5 furlong sprint where he tried to get going. Finally got going at the end. It just didn't, had nowhere to go, as it was, probably the final 16th before he started gaining ground. Puts him back to the route, runs a really nice race, and now comes back to the route again. First time Lasix, I think, could also be another key angle with Pirate Radio. Definitely one for my underneath play for sure. And the number 4 paint, I'll talk about the number 4. Actually, the number 4 Painter's Prodigy is one. Like I said, guys, I could be completely wrong here. It's coming out of a Laurel race in November 23rd, but Gary Capano, who's a very nice trainer over at the East Coast circuit, but gets Brittany Russell, which realistically, you can't judge by percentages, but everyone knows Brittany Russell could even be considered an upgrade here. Gets Louis Saez aboard, who, just seems like a horse that's really well meant for a spot like this. And gets first time Lasix as well, although might not be one of the most obvious choices, I think could be one to run really well. A little bit sneaky underneath, maybe like an 8-1 type horse. But no, I'll let you round out the conversation here. The number 6, 10th Mountain, who I mentioned, Jeremiah O'Dwyer, and I think it's David Egan. He's the guy coming over from Europe, so finally gets on a horse, and got a little bit light on the figures, but so is everyone else in the spot.
Yeah, there's definitely no world beaters in here. I think the insert of Pirate Radio into the race is pretty big because I think it's gonna press the pace a little bit. I think 10th Mountain, he's a little bit better with the target. You see the number was slow, but he came from way back into a little bit of a hot pace. But I just think needs more of a target. Last time was a little cool for him, and he had to go out wide. I'm just thinking maybe second off again. Nobody in this field that really flatters, and it's going to be quite a bit of a price here.
Don't disagree with you by any means. There's just a lot of different ways, especially underneath you can go. I feel like the top choices are going to kind of be a little bit cut and dry in this race, that being Rez's Rolex, tap it 3 times. The other ones are a little bit light on figures, but could obviously improve. It's not like Noah said there's any world beaters in this type of field, but the 2 top choices are pretty much separated numbers-wise from the rest. but underneath there's a lot of different ways you can go. So, and then we'll talk real quick about Charlie. I mean, Patrick and Charlie, we obviously don't talk to each other before we send these picks, but they might as well have done it together. They have Rez's Rolex in the number 8. It's the only one we didn't talk. Papa Jorge Delgado for with Sammy Camacho Jr., who we touched on before. Won a 16 claimer. Just a pretty easy trip, although he did it very well. I just don't know how that maiden 16 is going to class up to a race like this. I mean, I get it. Again, there's no world beaters in here, and Papa Do could be one to trip out, but I'm not sure it can be challenging if either the 1 or the 3 improve on their last number. But definitely one, again, to keep in mind. I felt like I've said it for every horse in this race, but definitely one to fill out your bottom 2 placings. I'm going 174. Patrick's going 183. Charlie's going 138, and Noah's going 136. Going to switch over, guys, to race number 9, and this is where it starts to get really good. This is the Ginger Brew Stakes, 125,000 going a mile on the turf. Remember, we talked about the short run up to the first turn at a mile and a 16th. This is even shorter. I mean, it's pretty instantaneous almost. I mean, other than the 7.5 furlongs they sometimes run, 2 turns at Gulfstream Park. I mean, this is pretty much as close as you can get to that first turn. Draws a field of 12, with 1 also eligible. Morning line favorite. I mean, it could be a toss-up between the number 12 Lifes and Audible, albeit all the way on the outside. Ozaro will definitely take some money for Clement and Gaffleon. And Waskisu, I'm going to take a guess. Wakishu for Alvarado and Mott could also take some money off a very, very nice last race. But I will switch over the picks right now. No one will get into it here. 3 of us are actually going, with a horse that looks to be at least a little bit of a middling price, Wakishu. But Noah, you don't have Wakishu anywhere, actually. You were going with a horse that looks to be a pretty decent price. The number 5, Time to Dazzle, Joe Bravo and Mark Cassie. This is gonna be a good one because I mean Charlie has the horse second, but Patrick and I have the horse nowhere. So Noah, what'd you like most about Time to Dazzle?
Yeah, I'm pretty interested in Time to Dazzle in the spot. You go back to the Maiden Breaker. Actually, beat the boys at Woodbine. And then Cassie, had enough confidence to throw her in the Jessamine. Was 4-1 in that spot, which Buku ended up beating that field pretty good, but I think that was a pretty decent grade too. Didn't end up running all that well. Gets some time off. Comes back to Gulfstream on December 15th. Another race, as I touched on earlier, that was supposed to be on the turf, but ended up going to the synthetic. If you go to that also claiming 75 on the 15th, sorry, Kyle, I'm making you go all over the place.
No, you're good.
Time to Dazzle was the even money favorite in that spot. And Joe Bravo kind of just, sent her to the lead and she never looked back. The thing to me that was, really impressive is she went pretty fast early. She wasn't, pressured all that much. But Bravo never went to the stick. It was a hand ride all the way around. I don't know if, she's got the class to compete with some of these in here. And I will say I'm not the biggest Joe Bravo fan. It's not, as nearly as big of a hatred for DeSormo as it is for Bravo. But I just, like the way that, Time to Dazzle is going. And I think, she's pretty well went for Cassie. I don't know. I think, she's going to be ready to fire.
I mean, like I said, Time to Dazzle is one that's going to be look to be a pretty decent price. I mean, I just think she was just better than that 75K field. I mean, Joe Bravo, she showed speed in the past, but nothing like last time. I think Bravo just said, I'm going to go to lead. Come catch me if you're better. And it just never, obviously, no one was nearly as good as Time to Dazzle was, being that it was a hand ride. So Time to Dazzle could be one to pick up pieces. And well, ladies and gentlemen, someone finally decides to show up. I mean, I'll check my watch here. I think it's like 30 minutes late or something like that. Albeit, I know he was trying to get home. I'm just giving him some crap. But from the team that does not play on New Year's Eve and hasn't played for a while, Charlie Freeman. Charlie, what's going on, man?
Hey, I thought we said 8:30. I had to get back from family dinner. What can I say?
Yeah. Excuses is what I hear. But anyway, now you're back. Now you can go because you and I have the same horse, and I'm interested to hear what you like about Wakisu. I'm going to say Wakisu from now on because I believe that's how you pronounce the SIU. And if I'm wrong, hate me for it. I got nothing for you. So, what'd you like most, Charlie, about Wakisu?
Yeah, this is a horse I feel very strongly about. Trained by Bill Mott and getting his guy Junior Alvarado. Last time out, just looked like a completely different horse. Again, as we've gotten better at handicapping, I've become one who's more appreciative of replays and, not just looking at the most recent race, but trying to understand, how much growth is there truly there for a horse. And I feel like you can really see that with this 6 horse. And the trip last time out, yes, it was pretty ideal, but it was still a pretty hot pace for the horse to have to keep up with and be able to hang in there the whole time. And then not only win, but win going away. I just think I love the trip for this horse. I think realistically, I know there's a lot of speed in this race, but I don't think this horse needs the lead. I understand that time form indicates that the 6 could go to the lead and be right up there, but I think ideally the 6 sits right next to the 5, just behind, and then right off the turn just goes right by. And I don't think the distance will be the problem. Horse is working forwardly. And we'll get to our best bets later, but I love this horse in this spot.
I do too. And, I talk about it a lot here. And, the big number jumps is something that I'm not too big of a fan of. But Bill Mott ran this horse on the dirt twice. And even from first to second start, this horse took a pretty decent bump behind. And, look at this first race. Alice Beach, Life Talk, Emery. There's a lot of good running line in the dirt races. Then jumps to the turf. And just absolutely impressive, albeit an ideal trip, still just extremely impressive. The way that Wakisu carried herself, I call myself, doesn't count. The way she carried herself through that race, I was very, very impressed. And to look to get a similar trip this time, probably, I don't expect the Motts to battle. I really don't. I think Wakisu probably has a little bit more of an opportunity to sit than San Pantaleo does. So I think Junior Alvarado, and the other thing, I guess, is Junior Alvarado choosing, because obviously he rides first call for Bill Mott 95% of the time. The fact that he chooses on Wakisu is another big boost. And I'm not usually one for jockey gymnastics, as we call it. But that's another big plus for me. I think Wakisu sits off the 7, let the 7 go, then come to the outside if he has room. I just really do like the trip as well, Charlie, as you pointed out, for the number 6 Wakisu. As we move on here, Noah, I'll let you talk on. We all have the number 4 Ozara in there. Some in second, some in third. Obvious, probably a little light on figures, but got the job done on the weight a while last time, albeit it took a pretty long while, no pun intended, to finally get there at 80 cents to your dollar, but. Again, she got winners do what winners do, and they win.
Yeah, they do win. The thing with Ozara is, she's talented. She like you said, she didn't really do anything wrong in the wait a while. She didn't really win like a 90 cents to the dollar horse really should. And it is interesting, if you are a little bit against her, you can make the case that, Irad isn't riding and he goes to the horse on the outside.
Yep.
I just, a horse that's, very consistent and one that's, if you're playing a horizontal ticket, it's probably going to be pretty hard to leave off.
I completely agree. I couldn't agree more with you there. And honestly, if Ozara has a little bit more kick this time down the lane, albeit it was a pretty decent, a cold pace last time, being 46-4 is not really that slow, but then going 110-1, it's back to back, basically 24-second quarters in there. So a little bit slow down and was still able to get there. Again, winners win. And if Ozara can continue to improve off that 76, maybe into the low 80s this time, I don't think I could leave her off any of my tickets, realistically speaking. But Ozara is definitely one that could trip out. We'll go to the outside horses here. Charlie, I'll let you touch on you talked about Time to Gazzle. So yeah, we'll go over here. So Noah, you have the 11 in third, Golden Ghost for Mark Casse. this is one that's going to have to be used early. And albeit the horses to her inside aren't necessarily slow or fast, but I mean, she's going to have to get over in a pretty quick run to the first turn.
Yeah, she is. She did end up breaking the maiden at Del Mar. Don't give me no West Coast bias nonsense because she ran 3 times to Saratoga. So don't give me that.
Well, I mean, fourth, sixth, fifth, and then all of a sudden she wins at Del Mar. I don't know, man. No, I'm just kidding.
When I watched Golden Ghost last race, the number is a little light, but she never looked like a loser. She did get a very good trip, but I think there was a little more in the tank. I'm not, so much concerned that Gaffleon doesn't ride because he's on Ozara, who's, probably going to be one of the top choices in here. But Edgar Zayas is, he's talented in his own right. Just a horse that, if he's able to get over from that 11 post or, being that far outside, he can, sit a similar trip to Time to Dazzle and some of those others. She's probably going to be a lot better price than some of these in here.
I don't disagree with you. And Howard, I'll get to your comment in a second here because I'm sure everyone else can attest. I'm assuming that's why everyone else left Life's an Audible off the ticket. But, that post is just absolutely brutal. Albeit, she is definitely the class of this field, being the, half in the Miss Girl to hard to justify the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly Turf winner. That's nothing to be, shy of at all. But the problem is that she likes to be forwardly placed. Did break her maiden at 5.5 though, coming from farther back. So being route races, I think she likes to be up a little bit closer. And that post just does her absolutely no favors. I mean, I'll go up to the track map here. I mean, you'll see that they start basically at the finish line, guys, and that's the run up almost. And you got to go immediately into that first turn from a 12 post where there's a lot of horses to the inside that want to gain the same position you're getting. I mean, she could easily be 6-7 wide into the first turn. And we've seen it. I mean, we saw it last week. We talked about Charlie. We talked about horses all the way on the outside in those mile races. And they're not even in the parking lot. They're on I-4 for Christ's sake, all the way out in the 10 path on the first turn, which, I mean, basically you're on the 10 path. Unless you can get positioned pretty quickly, you're kind of screwed. So
yeah, I just don't think Life's an Audible is fast enough to necessarily be able to go by all these other horses. I mean, I guess the good angle you could look at, again, I know that was going shorter, but that Life's an Audible has shown the ability to sit. I don't think IRAD has a choice but to sit. I think it's going to take too much out of Life's an Audible, who obviously is a classic field, but the figures are still a little light. I think it's also hard knowing that it's Pletcher and IRAD. There's not going to be much money there to get. And again, just having to navigate that trip. I feel like if IRAD has to send, I don't think Life's an Audible is going to have enough in the tank. I think the only hope is being able to navigate where enough ground can be saved sitting just off, and hopefully some sort of gap opens where he doesn't have to go 7-8 wide.
I don't disagree with you by any means. This is my other one, guys. I have Yada in third. This is a deep closer, but not really as much upside, I think, as the rest of them. But lost to Zona Verde in that race that we talked about on last Thursday, Charlie, where Zona Verde didn't come to run back very well in that race, but the point still stands. Was third in a grade 3. These earlier races are really what I'm keying on. I mean, that second at Keeneland and the non-losers at 2 was very good. The Dozens Diamonds, just there's a lot of different ways. I know the 10 post is pretty bad, but this horse, I think the 10 versus the 12 with a post like this, the 10 has basically no for early speed at all. So the 10's just going to drop back, probably be 2-3 wide on the first turn, as opposed to the 12 that wants to gain position with 5 horses to her inside. It's going to be a lot harder trip. So I like a horse like 10 Yada in case something drastic happens and the pace completely melts. Yada is going to be the one to pick up the pieces for me, albeit she might not be as fast as some of the other fillies in this race. I'm going 6-4-10. That's Waukesha, Ozara, and Yada. Patrick's going 6-7-4, Waukesha, San Pantaleo, and Ozara. Charlie's going 6-5-4, Waukesha, Time to Dazzle, Ozara. Noah's going 5-4-11, Time to Dazzle, Ozara, Golden Ghost. Guys, switching over race number 10 here as we move along pretty quick. Race number 10 as I switch over the picks right now. This is the Limehouse Stakes, $100,000 going 6 furlongs on the dirt. And guys, there's some really not even pardon my friend. There's some really weird shit in this race. And I'll move over to the picks right now, guys, but you'll see the field of 7 right here. The morning line favorite has got to be the number 2, the runner up in the juvenile turf sprint, the juvenile turf sprint, Valiant Force. David Egan takes the mount for Jorge Delgado. And I mean, Cuban Thunder is going to be your second choice. Miguel Vasquez, Jorge Delgado, and Surf Flash on the inside. The Iowa bred's most likely going to be the third choice. And Noah, we're split 2 and 2 here, guys. Noah and I are both going with the number 1, Surf Flash, while Patrick and Charlie are going to take the chalk. Valiant Force. Charlie, I'll let you touch on Valiant Force. There's not too much to say, really, but why the move to the dirt?
Yeah, certainly that's something you have to question. But for me, it's something I'm willing to look by simply from the ability that I saw. I remember we were all there for this race. It was an incredible performance. I don't think any of us are really on Valiant Force. Being a horse that was going to need to close, needed more distance, even if it was that hot of a pace, just was likely not going to get there. But the fact that Valiant Force was able to get within half a length against Big Evs, who is one of the most talented horses in the world going sprinting, and absolutely flew. I mean, you can't emphasize enough how fast they went. I mean, 20 and 3, 43 and 3. I don't care if you say, sometimes the times are more, generous in Cali, they go faster. I mean, watching this in person, I didn't even know what to say. It felt like I was watching like a 40-yard dash for those of you who are, into the NFL and you're watching the combine. That's what the whole race felt like.
Charlie, real quick. I mean, you see Big Abs here. Which one do you think is Valiant Force? I mean, this is Valiant all the way out here. I mean, he's probably 9 wide into the stretch. Also, there's my beautiful boy. Shout out to Shards. But I mean, he comes flying in the final. I mean, the final 16th. You see here, he's just picking off everybody, and with the clearest run, but still 3/4 the length of Big Evs, who ran absolutely monstrous in a hot pace in that race. But Valiant Force, I mean, look, there's nothing to be ashamed of in that race, but I just don't understand. I mean, maybe he worked himself onto the dirt, guys. I mean, look at these works.
Yeah, the works are incredible.
I mean, 47 flat bullet on the 22nd, and then comes back 47 and 1, just second. A place off a bullet. So maybe Valiant Force just worked himself onto the dirt, which could be the case. And Delgado is pretty decent with this type of move. Very small sample size, but I think he's either 2 for 6 or 3 for 6 off of a trainer switch to the dirt from the turf. So again, very small sample size, but does do well with this type of move, and easily probably the classiest horse in this field by far. Just can the horse take to the dirt? Will be the question here. Cuban Thunder is the other horse that we'll talk about real quick. Cuban Thunder ran a really nice race but an off the turf Tapeta race, but coming over from Ireland as well, from turf racing to Tapeta racing. Ran in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, just probably nowhere to be found. Granted, Fierceness absolutely ran a hole in the wind that day, but that second race at Gulfstream instills a little bit more confidence that the horse can actually run on the dirt, albeit it was on the Tapeta. But you can go many different ways with, does Tapeta take more to turf or dirt? I just think Cuban Thunder, being that 83, could even continue to improve off of a race like that. And if he does, he could give a lot of horses in this race a run for their money. But Noah, realistically, the last horse we need to talk about is the number 1, Surf Flash, Gerardo Ochoa. Last time in the inaugural at Tampa Bay Downs, headed down the stretch, just got passed up. But, got shuffled back at the start. Not really where this horse wants to be. I think this horse is much better on the lead, where I think Size will have him, which is why I really liked Surf Flash. Noah, what about you?
Yeah, I really don't see a lot of speed in this race. I think, you pick up Saez and it's just a complete send.
Yep.
I mean, I think he pretty much has to send from the rail. Maybe the numbers are a little light, but I just don't. This is a really weird race, like you said, and I'm gonna put my confidence in Saez on the lead. Also, quick note: shout out the breeders, Iowa State University. That's a little down to earth for me, which is kind of cool to see. I actually, threw in the 5 in second I was just kind of looking for horses that have kind of proven on the dirt, just because we don't really know about the Delgado runners.
Yeah.
Last time you could have claimed this horse for 40 at Tampa, and the horse runs well enough for O'Connell to throw him in a $100,000 stake, and you pick up Jose Ortiz. And again, the numbers could be a little on the lighter side and compared to what we've seen from these two, but just a really weird race all around.
I completely. And then Charlie, you have the 6 real quick. Anything you want to touch on with Hermoso Hombre before we move on?
Yeah, I guess I'm going with all the Delgados here, getting a Delgado 1, 2, 3. But yeah, honestly, for me, I like the last work was a bullet, and kind of like what Noah was saying. I was just looking for a horse that had any experience really on. I know it's the all weather, but still, just something that's not just turf, some experience at Gulfstream. And again, I know the figures are a little light, but I think Hermoso Hombre will take well to the distance. I think could sit a decent stalking trip at a decent price to get somewhere underneath.
Yeah, Noah, what's your down to home connection to Iowa State? North Dakota State is next. I love it, Paul. But what's your connection to Iowa State?
It was just cool to see that there's students at a university that are contributing to something like horse racing. It's not something that
well, especially Iowa State, right? But yeah, shout out Arizona is another school that does it as well. They obviously have the big racetrack industry program, but yeah, they're also ones that breed horses. But yeah, it was pretty cool to see. Also, an Iowa bred running, in a race like this is always nice to see as well. I'm going 1-4-2, guys. Again, that's Surf Flash over Cuban Thunder over Valiant Force. Again, these could change. Follow me on Twitter at AP Roscoe K for my full complete analysis on Saturday when this obviously runs that morning. Patrick's going Valiant Force, Surf Flash, Cuban Thunder. Charlie's going Valiant Force, Cuban Thunder, Hermoso Hombre. And Noah's going Surf Flash, Louis the Sun King, and Cuban Thunder. Guys, moving on to race number 11, the last leg of the late pick 5, and this is probably the hardest and best race of them all. I would argue the feature on the day. It's the Dania Beach Stakes, 125 going a mile on the turf. Again, another short run up. We continue to hammer it home. Morning line favorite, I mean, probably dip between Palm Tree, the 7, and Agate Road, the number 10. I would probably give the nod to the Agate Road with what Brian Nadeau likes to call the IRAD tax that I am now adopting. So shout out to Brian for that one. But Palm Tree won't be far behind. I mean, even a horse like Depiction probably won't be too far behind. Typhoon Fury will be bet just a little bit. Air Recruit as well. But Agate Road most likely your morning line favorite for this one as we switch over. 3 of us. Noah and I talked about this before when I was inputting stuff. I thought I was getting a little bit clever, and Noah's like, "You guys have the 2?" I thought I was getting clever. It was literally like the same exact thing back and forth. But Charlie, you are going with the number 10 Agate Road, so I'll switch over right now. My concern is pretty obvious, as I'm sure you can tell. But what'd you like most about the number 10 Agate Road?
Yeah, it's funny you guys all put the 2 on top because I firmly wanted to put Palm Tree in second. I just felt like Palm Tree loves to run just close. I was actually flipping back and forth between putting the 10 and 2 on top, and I thought I'd be the only one to do the 2 if I did that. But I tried to be a chalk eater and just stick with the 10. So I guess we all are all over this 2, and now the horse will either run or come dead last. But back to the 10 horse here. I just think it's the class of the field. Ran in the Pilgrim, then runs in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Grade 1. And, I know the field because of the scratches ended up being pretty weak, but still unquestionable is an unbelievable horse. You can ask West Coast Bias himself, who was all over that horse on that day. And, just to finish just 2 lengths behind a horse of that talent for me just says a lot. I understand the figures don't jump off the page, but at the end of the day, it's Rapoli, it's Pletcher, it's Irad. I get you'll get the tax, and I know we're concerned about the gate, but the one thing I will say is, for me, it's a lot better if you're a closer that's on the outside because you're going to want to navigate towards the inside anyway than if you're a speed horse like we touched on in the races earlier. So, again, I just think ultimately the class of the 10 will be able to get it done. But as you touched on, this is a pretty open race. You got, we'll touch on in a moment, Palm Tree was always right there and is just bound to get that win again after always just coming up just short. And I know you guys want to touch on the 2 who is fasting out of trouble trip last time out.
Yeah, and no, I'll let you touch on as I go through the replay. This will be the last replay we show for the day. And This is a horse that likes to be forwardly placed, which is something I'm sure you picked up on, and definitely was not forwardly placed in this race by any means.
Yeah, the first note that I had on Typhoon Fury is that the horse should be more forwardly placed than last time, because this break is pretty brutal.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see the two right here. Look at, I mean, 1, 2, 3 horses all converging in on number 2, who drops back immediately here. Like I said, this horse wants to be, at least at maximum probably a length and a half, 2 lengths back. And I mean, he's spotting the field probably 6 lengths, 5 lengths here right off the gate here. And he only continues to drop farther back. And I mean, there's not too much, like, you can't even hate on Castellano for it. I mean, what else was he supposed to do? The horses wants to be up, but he actually does end up, I'll continue to play it here. He does end up rushing the horse, not really rushing up the horse, but just gradually bringing the horse up. You can see Castellano right here, 3 wide on the 2. And he still comes with a late run. It's a full driving, backstretch 3 wide run here. You see the 2 in the pink here. I'll fast forward just a little bit more. And not necessarily like a very push button go, but given the spotting break and the fact that he was still able to get up, does end up getting 3rd, I believe, loses to the 7 Wally World, coming up on a much easier trip on the inside, only losing to that by a nose in the end on a bob. I was very impressed with the, basically resilience of Typhoon Fury, which I'm sure you were as well, Noah. First time routing as well. And that late run showed me that this horse I'm not too concerned about the distance for this horse by any means.
Yeah, no, I was definitely impressed with that last race. After the incident, the horse exerted a lot of energy especially early, to try to get back into the race, and was wide as well, and then came with that run. For me, the thing that kind of tipped me over was there were, a few spots that Saez I thought could have gone, and he ended up here for George Weaver, who is, having a hell of a meet himself as well. I thought this horse, was going to be a pretty decent price, but maybe not with the familiarity with all of our co-hosts here.
I guess, yeah. This horse is going to be, 6-5 now that all of us gave it out. No, probably not even close to that. I'm aiming for somewhere around the 5-1 mark. I think is pretty fair for Typhoon Fury, maybe a little bit less. Just based on, obviously it's Rapoli, Saez gets aboard. You'll get a little bit taxed for that, but 4-1, I think 4-1 is pretty fair for Typhoon Fury in a field like this. 5-1 still not out of the question by any means. But we'll go through the rest of the field here, guys. We have the number 7, Palm Tree. Not too much to say, really, on this horse. Charlie, I'll let you touch on Palm Tree real quick, and then Noah, I'll let you go through the other 2 that you have, as I have the 3 in there as well.
Yeah, Palm Tree just hasn't gotten the greatest trips lately. I mean, again, you can't make an excuse for a horse every time and say it's your, but the reality is after, the race at Ellis, the last 3 races have been solid. One at Kentucky Downs, didn't run bad at Keeneland in the Bourbon, just honestly in a hot pace where the horse was kind of trying to stalk, just didn't really work out. And then last time closed up to a neck. If you look at, I believe it was the Keeneland race where the horse really ran into trouble down the stretch, and just you literally see, if you want to talk about the worst time possible a horse can get steadied. I know we're not showing any more replays, but right when Palm Tree was about to start to really get going and ramp up, the horse just got completely studied, and then just without even being asked, naturally showed a little more at the end. But I think with a clean trip, certainly could have won. And then last time out at Gulfstream, just misses. I think the distance will be good here. And then, again, Getson Ortiz brother Brendan Walsh is a great trainer. Horse just worked a minute, so the bullet workout is there. And again, Palm Tree is just one of those horses that always takes money, but I would argue isn't a money burger, because it's always not the favorite, but one of them. But runs his race and is always right there.
I will say I was on Palm Tree the whole way through in that Pulpit Stakes. Did get a little bit tight. Hurted, I guess it says in the notes. Really got rubbed and couldn't really go by. I don't know if it was IRAD, but it was basically IRAD shenanigans. The horse was getting rubbed up on as the horse was going by, and all of a sudden 2 horses come flying over the top and take him out. So I think Palm Tree still ran a really nice winning race in that last in the Pulpit at Gulfstream, but we'll have to beat what I probably say will be a little bit harder of a field in this one. And then Depiction's the last horse, Noah. I'll let you touch on anything you want. The Bourbon was, I mean, a little bit disappointing because I was actually on Depiction, I think, for that race as well. A little bit disappointing after that really nice maiden breaker at Ellis Park. Albeit a lot of horses came back to run really well out of the Bourbon, and the horse has been working lights out at Palm Meadows.
Yeah, I know we were in the same room that day, and I don't know if you remember or not, but I love Depiction of the Bourbon. I was all over him. He didn't run super well. I think he was actually either 10 or 12 to 1 morning line and got bet down pretty heavily. For me, I think the horse is really talented. I don't know if the mile is really what he wants. When I've seen him run, it seems like he's one that kind of wants a little more distance. So in terms of Depiction, I don't always look for horses kind of down the road. But I think Depiction could very well have a very good 3-year-old year.
I agree with you. I'm very interested in Depiction to see how Depiction runs on Saturday, because that will really give no pun intended, the depiction of how talented this horse truly is. I'm going 2-7-3. Patrick's going 2-10-7. Charlie's going 10-7-2. Noah's going 2-3-6. Guys, switching out, and I had to bonk Howard for this comment right here. Getting rubbed up on sounds like the breeding shed. I bonked him for that one. So that's go to horny jail is basically what that entails. If you know that meme, if you know, you know. Mark Bocas brings up a very good point. Love that the tropical turf pick 3 is in this sequence, guys. It's 7, 9, and 11. So it actually worked out really well that we not only covered the late pick 5, but also the tropical turf pick 3, which is a very good offering from Gulfstream Park this championship meet. But I'll bring up, guys, our best bets here, and then we'll end the show real quick. Patrick's best bets, race number 7. The double 7 with 1-8, if I remember correctly. Race number 7, the 7. That was the turf race going a mile and a 16th, and the number 7 is Game Change, which is actually a very interesting horse. That horse will not be a short morning line. That's the horse coming over from Shug to James Toner, who I touched on, who's 3 for 16 off the trainer switch. But last time out at Belmont, he's taking that New York horse and bringing him over here. Or bringing him down to Gulfstream Park could be a improvement needed for sure. But I love that, it's a very aggressive single, which I love. And he's bringing it with Tap It 3 times. And the number 8, Papa Do. And in race number 11, he has a win on number 2, Typhoon Fury. Charlie, I'll let you talk about your best bets here real quick. Race number 9, you're going with win on number 6, Waukesha. And race number 9, you're going a double also with Waukesha into the 2 and a 4, which is Valiant Force and Cuban Thunder. Charlie, talk about your best bets.
Yeah, for me, I'm just trying to play around the horse I feel strongest about in the sequence. We always talk about standing on your opinion, and I love the 6 in the spot. I think the horse can take a step forward and you'll get a good value. I'd say ideally anywhere in like the 3-1 range and higher, I'd be really happy. And then with my double is pretty simple. I mean, I agree with what Boss Man was saying in the comments. Valiant Force, in theory, should dominate this race. I mean, the works show it. The performance last time out shows it. But just in case, because the horse hasn't been on the turf, and you're right, maybe it is the works, but you never know. It also could just be like they wanted to get the horse back out there. I want to hedge my bet a little bit. So playing with the double, and as you talk about, would certainly be Dutch in them. So also the 4 Cuban Thunder in there is just the 2 most logicals played in with my horse. And I also will say real quick, because I know I missed out on the first 2 races. So I know I was 10-11, 8, I believe, in the first race we covered. I think Quality G should be able to get it done, and I love the figures, but I also think Fredo is so damn fast and could wire the field. So those are the 2 I would watch out for the most. The next race, I know it's like your classic Arlington-esque race, just some bad horses that have all run against each other. Ultimately, I do like Tap It 3 times. I just like the youth of the horse and the fact that there hasn't been as much experience. It looks like there could be more upside. I know the horse didn't get by the 3 last time, but could. And I think the one other horse to look out for, I just wanted a new face. I think Papa Do, outside of being a great name, is interesting because I think the horse could want some more distance after last time sitting off the pace. So that's my very quick analysis for the 2 races I missed.
Hey, for showing up late, I'll give it to you. Good luck with your best bets, Charlie, on Saturday. Of course, I'm just giving you shit. You gotta give you shit if you show up that late. Noah's best bets. Race number 7, a win on number 8, American Diamond, a horse that Noah talked about that actually none of us liked. So again, a nice kind kind of following on the Patrick best bet wave of just being, by himself, which I really like. In race number 9, a win on number 5, Time to Dazzle. So 2 horses that, Noah feels really strongly about that none of us really had. So Noah, talk about your best bets.
Yeah, I actually think Charlie had American Diamond in 3rd.
Yeah, I had it 3rd.
But I just think with, Quality G's I think is probably going to be a pretty heavy favorite. And I think he's probably a little bit vulnerable. Maybe just doesn't like to get it done.
Yep.
I think, American Diamond's probably going to be a decent price. I'd say maybe 4-1 if I had to guess. You never know. Maybe you could, get some Safi money. And then the second one was in the 9th race. I went with Time to Dazzle. Favorite in there is probably going to be Life's Inaudible, which frankly I don't like at all, and has to deal with that outside post. So after that, I think there's a lot of opportunity for some prices, and I think Time to Dazzle, has had some left in the tank last time. Maybe it was a bad field, maybe it wasn't. But Cassie's somebody that I'm not going to question, and if the horse is ready, I think she can get it done.
I love it, man. And, I think there's a lot of horses on the outside that you really have to make decisions on. That being Agate Road in the in race number 10, and the Ginger Brew, you have Life's Inaudible, as Noah talked about, race number 9. And in race number 7, even, you have the horse all the way to the outside, the Quality G, who a lot of us had on top, but there's a lot of horses you have to make decisions about, being that they might be post-compromise. So Noah makes some very good points. Noah, good luck with your best bets as well. And guys, these are mine. I have 2 win bets, and I'll explain why. There's a double combination that I do like, but I think the number 6, Waukesha, in race number 9 will be a pretty good price. If he does end up getting bet down below what I want, but the doubles make it where I can play it that way, I will. That's the way I'm willing to be able to play it, is if Waukesha goes below 7-2, maybe 4-1, somewhere in there, but the doubles are still giving to the 3 horses I have in the next race, which is Valiant Force, in the Limehouse, Valiant Force, Surf Flash, and Cuban Thunder. If the doubles are nice, I'll play it that way, but I really like Waukesha, and I think he has a lot of good upside to improve second time on the turf. And in the Dania Beach, there's a lot of different ways you can go, but I really like that that Typhoon Fury is going to be on the inside, after showing a very good, promising run last time with some very big trouble out of the gate. I think Typhoon Fury could go a little bit under the radar, maybe in that 4 or 5-1 price point, and you can get some really good money home on that one. But guys, that is going to wrap up episode number 55 of Bettin and Boozin on the HHH Racing Podcast. Like I said, really appreciate everybody joining in here, guys, as we continuously go on. This is technically, I know episode 52, I said this is 1 year of Bettin and Boozin, but honestly, the beginning of January, guys, was when we started Bettin and Boozin first. And really, guys, I mean, obviously Noah wasn't there at the start, but he was on the podcast in the middle of the year, did such a great job that we brought him on full time, and it's just taken off ever since. We can only thank you guys for that. I've explained this before, but this really just started as an experiment. Howard and I were talking about how we can kind of appeal to a younger audience and get a little bit more people into the game. And we came up with Bettin and Boozin, and it's really just, we've had thousands of views ever since. We're probably in the 20,000, 30,000 view mark, somewhere around there, and we only have you guys to thank for that. So thank you guys so much again for everything you guys do. As this podcast would be nothing without you guys. So thanks again to everyone out there. But for my co-hosts, Noah Maher and Charlie Freeman, actually, wait a second. Charlie, real quick here. I watched the Michigan game, 27-20 over Alabama. It was a fantastic game. It really was. And both teams, albeit a defensive battle, probably 2 of the best defenses. And I think Washington, Michigan, if Washington can actually penetrate Michigan's defense, I think it might just be a shootout. I really do. Washington's defense is not bad, but it's not the best by any means. As you saw, Texas and Washington and you've seen it in Washington's Pac-12 games. They've gotten into some shootouts before. So I want to hear an unbiased opinion, because I believe this game's on Monday the 8th, right? Because
Yes.
I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, no, actually, we won't have time to talk about it next week. So I want to talk about it real quick here. But thank you guys. Thanks to everyone that listened to the horse racing segment. But Charlie, real quick, kind of want to get your opinion on what's going to happen here with college football.
Yeah, so obviously people remember from the show last week or 2 weeks ago when we had to give our predictions. I picked Washington against Bama, and I picked Washington to win it all. Obviously, Michigan got it done. I did kind of say that I was more confident actually in Washington winning their game than Bama winning theirs. I said that was more of a coin flip, which, with overtime it proved to be. And I talked to Bossman actually about this, unbiased consultant on my opinion. And here's how I see it. I think you have it exactly right, Kyle. I think the reality is if this becomes a shootout, Washington will win. We've seen it before. They've been in these shootouts before. And for me, this just feels like Michigan TCU, and not because it's purple and blue. The way I see it is TCU forced Michigan into a high-scoring track meet, and that's not how Michigan likes to win. Michigan likes to win how we were seeing early on in their game against Alabama. They want to punch you in your mouth, play more physical in the trenches, keep it low scoring, dominate you with a run game and defense. And if it was up to them, they would happily say we can score 20, 21, 24 points every game, and we're going to hold our opponents to 20 or less every time. Washington wants to play until the scoreboard falls off and score as many points as they possibly can. So I think the reality is if Michigan can contain Penix, can slow down Washington and make it a low scoring, do some long methodical drives, I think they win the game. If Washington can hold up enough against Michigan, and their pass defense is good, you saw against Texas, the run defense is obviously the biggest concern because Michigan can run. If they can make J.J. McCarthy have to beat them, and Penix can sling it and can make it a high-scoring game, I think Michigan, you could admit, would be in more trouble in a shootout than a low-scoring game because that's not what they want. And I'm banking on the fact, I'm hoping my future cashes, I'm banking on the fact that Washington can make it a shootout. And this truly isn't me being against Michigan. For those of you who remember when we did our college football picks throughout this whole year when we've mixed it in, I've been on Washington since the start of the college football season. As I have in my caption right now, in Penix we trust, I'm sticking with them. And then I'll let you talk, but I want to give 2 shout-outs real quick. Shout out to my Saints for showing up when I went. They finally played a good football game when I show up. And then shout out as boss man a touchdown to me and Mr. C, who absolutely ran his heart out. I mean, you want to talk about a horse who deserved to win, who was the best horse in the field. All the credit to Luis Saez and Fly the W for getting that win, but the horse did get to sit a nicer trip. Irad did all he could. He just had to go so damn wide. But, man, me and Mr. C showed he wasn't a fraud. That race, he put the draw line through it. Me and Mr. C is back. I love that horse so much, and it was so cool to watch him in the winner's circle. And, yes, I was able to contain myself in public and not embarrass the boss of it.
Are you sure? Because Charlie almost had a heart attack in the winner's circle. That's what I read. So you weren't jumping around?
Yeah, I know. I was yelling.
Roll that program, giving it one of these?
Nope. Bossman said I couldn't swear and I couldn't have a heart attack. I didn't do either, so I did my part.
I'm just giving you crap, man. No, honestly, this is a game where Mike, and he's done it all year, but Mike Sanders still in the Michigan secondary has to step up. They have to make plays. They have to contain Penix in the pocket, and you have to force him to make throws. Granted, he's a very good quarterback, and he does make throws. But the fact of the matter is that if they're going to force him to try and find stuff in coverage, the Michigan front will get to him by the time that he has time to throw the ball out. If Michigan can penetrate that pocket, I really think Washington is going to be in trouble because Washington does great when Penix can sling the ball. They can throw 15, 20 yards, at least 10 yards per attempt, and they can get a nice 300, 400-yard game out of Penix Jr. I really think that's their strong suit. They have a running game. They don't have the best running game, and I don't think they're going to have a really good one against a great Michigan front. The thing is that you touched on, Charlie, as well. If Corum and Donovan Edwards get started up and Corum has another 125-yard game, Donovan Edwards brings up with a 65, 75-yard game, it's going to be very hard to stop that Michigan offense if you have that run that's so good and so potent when you can pair it with play action and you can pair it with RPOs and all this type of stuff. That's when Michigan can get really dangerous. And the fact of the matter is if they can establish that, I think and again, I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible because I will be sitting in front of the screen screaming at pixels for J.J. McCarthy to just throw the damn ball at people. But I really think that's going to be where Washington can struggle is if they allow that run game to be set up and then allow them to be, like I said, RPO'd or play action driven. that's where Michigan gets really dangerous. So we'll obviously talk about it next week as we move after the game happens.
I want to hear what West Coast bias has to say, because I have futures on Washington and I'm a little bit biased, and you're obviously very biased to Michigan. I want to hear the only person who has no horse in the race. And there's no SEC now. The SEC's frauds. None of them made the.
Well, none of it. But they're only like 9-0 in bowl games. But yeah,
but they didn't win the ones that matter most. All right, now let's hear. No, I swear we have an SEC team every year. So the first time he has to watch what's also 2 future Big Ten teams. So maybe the Big Ten is the best conference. But I want to hear what West Coast bias thinks here. Who do you got, Noah?
I don't really know who to pick in this game. I will say, kind of with all of the drama and discussion about who deserved to be in, who didn't. These 2 teams damn well deserve to be where they are right now, and I'm glad that we're gonna have hopefully a good game on our hands, and I'm excited to see it.
So you didn't know. So you didn't give one. You got to.
No,
I got to get a pick out of you before you end the show.
Well,
I mean, everyone's been against me from the start, bro. I was at Disney in the parks watching, like, going back and forth between talking shit with these guys, watching the game on my phone, and trying to figure out Genie Plus to get on whatever next ride we wanted to get on. So the battery life was a little bit drastic, and it died at the worst/best time when I could just freaking watch the game and not have to deal with these guys. But I want to pick before, because obviously I'm Michigan, obviously Charlie's Washington, so I'll give it to you to end off what has been a great show.
Yeah, I will say, even though Michigan did win that game, I was very disappointed with the defensive schemes that Michigan was running. I don't know what – I mean, Milroe can't throw the ball more than 12 yards, so I don't understand why they didn't have a spy. I mean, every time he got out of the pocket, he was running for 12, 15 yards. I mean, the Michigan defense had a month to prepare and still had trouble with that. And then now they only get a week to prepare for a completely different offense where Penix is just going to completely sling the ball all over the field. And important to note that Penix has only been sacked 11 times the whole year. So he's getting that ball out quick. So it'll be interesting to see if Michigan is ready. If the coaches are going to get them prepared for some kind of offense that's completely different. I just think Penix has got all the confidence in the world right now, so I'll go with Washington.
My boy. West Coast. You should have known West Coast bias.
Everyone against the boys, as it's been all year. It will continue to be. Even after they win on Monday, it will still be everyone.
Michigan's never faced adversity. They played no one. They played no good quarterbacks, no good offenses.
You're right.
Washington had to get through Oregon, who you could argue is one of the most complete teams in the country. I don't think that's a crazy statement to say. Yeah, they blew out Liberty. I just think they've been an underdog all year. I got crushed on Twitter when I said that they would beat Oregon in the Pac-12 as 9.5-point underdogs. You can try to play because we're all against Michigan that they're the underdogs. But if we're being unbiased here, Washington's been an underdog. They were an underdog against Texas, an underdog against Oregon. They're an underdog against Michigan. Everybody picks against them, and they keep winning. And they love these close games. That's the only other thing I will add is, to Michigan's credit, they usually would beat up on teams. When Ohio State hung around, they were able to kind of pull away, and OSU made it close late. Against Penn State, they pulled away. I guess Bama would be the only exception of a game they couldn't pull away. But Washington, even you saw it in the Texas game, they love to let teams hang around. So they're used to having to play in these close, stressful games. That's the only other thing I will add is, if this game is as close as I believe it will be, I do trust Penix more than I trust J.J. McCarthy, even though he's Chicago.
I personally I love the matchup. I really do.
I agree. This is a fun game.
It's going to be a fun game no matter what. And it's probably not going to be a defensive game, at least on both sides of the ball by any means. So, but it will definitely be a fun one for sure. But guys, we're going a little bit over time. I wanted to get that in there before we moved on. But
it's the last college football cover of the year.
It is the last college football. But next week, guys, you guys will be in for a treat. I'll put on some more stuff on Twitter. I won't ruin it right now.
Don't spoil it yet. No.
I will not spoil it yet, but we have a very special guest coming on next week to talk about maybe a little bit of horse racing, but definitely a lot of football as the NFL playoffs start next week with the wild card round. So be on the lookout for that with a very special guest next Wednesday, of course, at normal time and everything else. But for my co-host, Noah Maher, Charlie Freeman, 30 minutes late, my man, I've been your host, Kyle Roscoe, in episode number 55 of Bettin and Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast, covering Gulfstream Park Saturday and a little bit of the college football playoff final. And until next time, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everybody. Have a great night.
Bear down.
Bear down is 100% correct. I'm definitely ending on that.